Hi there, my name's Simon Drew, and welcome to the Practical Stoic Podcast, where I give you practical Stoic advice for modern times. You can support the show by going to patreon.com/Simon Drew. I also do one-on-one mindset coaching, and you can book in your first free consultation by going to risetothegoodlife.com/coaching. On Facebook, you can join my group, the Practical Stoic Mastermind. But for now, enjoy this episode. Hi there, my name's Simon Drew, and welcome to another episode of the Practical Stoic Podcast. When we begin the process of living with intention, and when we start on the road of personal development and life change, it soon becomes apparent that many things which we once thought were important now seem insignificant in the big scheme of things. We once gossiped with friends. We were once angered quickly. We thought that having more would lead to greater happiness, or that life was a sprint for the next big high as opposed to a long-distance search for the meaning and personal growth that we actually need to be happy. But now we think differently. There is no longer room for gossip, and there is no longer room in our life for the next quick fix, because we understand that there are no shortcuts, but rather there are only correct principles. And when we get to this point, it can be easy for us to forget where we came from. We get impatient with those people who value things that seem wrong to us, and we can become somewhat snobby towards the people who seem to us to be living lives of triviality, when it is in fact we who should be more forgiving and loving and empathetic than anyone else, seeing as we have this knowledge and wisdom. And the Stoics also felt like we should be more tolerant of those who believe and act contrary to what we think to be right. And the following passage from Marcus Aurelius will explain why. He said, quote, "Every soul is deprived of truth against its will, and is likewise deprived against its will of justice, self-control, kindness, and everything of that kind. It is necessary to keep this in mind always, because it will make you milder towards everyone else." End quote. Marcus Aurelius makes a great point at the start of that passage, where he says that people are deprived of truth against their will. And basically what he's explaining here is that some people simply haven't had the opportunity, and some people may never have the opportunity, to be in a situation where they are able to learn about how to live a good life and how to be a good and honorable member of society. And to look at one extreme level of this, think of somebody who grows up in a dangerous neighborhood and soon begins a life of criminality, moving in and out of jail from a young age. Now, someone like Marcus Aurelius would say that this is a person who has essentially been given a bad roll of the dice. He's been deprived of the wisdom that we have about how to live a good life. And so when we know that this was not necessarily his choice, we will be better equipped to be kind and empathetic towards him and his decisions. Now, I know that some of you are saying, well, doesn't Stoicism teach us that we have personal responsibility? And don't we all have to take that responsibility for our own actions? And I agree with you. Stoicism does teach that we all need to take responsibility for our actions. But that's coming from the perspective of somebody who already knows that they need to take that personal responsibility. And I would ask you this question. What if you never had the chance to learn that you need to take personal responsibility? What if nobody ever taught you? And this is what Marcus Aurelius was talking about, because if you never had the chance to learn, or if nobody ever tried to teach you about personal responsibility, then you would be deprived of that knowledge against your will. You didn't choose to not learn, or you didn't choose to not have somebody teach you that principle, but it just happened. And so this is why we need to have empathy for those people who don't have the knowledge that we may have. And moving on, that analogy that I used of the person living a life of crime is perfect for the next quote that I want to share, where Epictetus encourages us to essentially forgive even those who are robbers or adulterers. He says, quote, "This robber and this adulterer, shouldn't they have been destroyed? Not at all, but rather ask this. This man who has been misled and deceived about the most important things, who has been blinded, not in his vision but in his judgment, the ability to distinguish good from evil, shouldn't we destroy him? If you put it this way, you will see how inhumane your question is. It is like saying, this blind man, shouldn't we destroy him? This deaf mute? End quote. I love this analogy that Epictetus gives, because what he teaches us is that there exists not only a blindness of vision, but also a blindness of thought and wisdom. We who know the right way to live are no different to those who don't, except for the fact that we have been given the opportunity to see the right way to live while they have not. And so we need to have the empathy and humanity to see from the perspective of the person who doesn't have our knowledge. And when we get to that point, we'll be, as the Stoics suggest, milder towards those people who don't necessarily live in the way that we think they should live. And as I'm talking about this, I know that in my own life, there is a specific day, my 20th birthday, that separates my life into two sections. The first part of my life when I couldn't see, and the second part of my life when I can. And that's metaphorically speaking. But, even now, I know that it's certainly the case that there are many other beautiful truths that I'm completely blind to. There are things that I don't know, but I don't know that I don't know. It's all very confusing, but I think it's important to recognize that not only did you used to be a person who you may now despise, but also that in the future you will think that it's crazy that you used to think like you think now. And right now you believe that what you're doing and what you're thinking is the best possible way to live and think. And so does everybody else. Which brings me to the last quote from Epictetus that I want to share with you. And he said, quote, "Whenever somebody does you wrong or speaks ill of you, remember that he is doing what he thinks is proper. He can't possibly be guided by what appears right to you, but only by what appears right to him. So if he sees things wrongly, he is the one who is hurt, because he is the one who has been deceived. Starting from this reasoning, you will be mild towards whoever insults you." End quote. So, whenever you come face to face with a person who acts in a way that you believe to be wrong, remember that they believe that how they are acting is the correct way to act. Based on the roll of the dice that they were given, they believe that they are in the right. But remember always that it is not you who is hurt, but rather it is them. They are ignorant to the truths about how to live a good life, and so in the long run they will be hurt the most. But on the flip side, it's also important to point out that we are most likely also ignorant to truths which can help us to live a better life, as I mentioned earlier. And the fact that we would get mad at somebody who believes or acts differently to us only serves to prove this point. We must have empathy, love, and understanding for the people who we deal with every single day. We are fortunate that we have found philosophies and ideas that help us to live great lives. But not everyone thinks like we think or acts like we act, and so we need to be kind and understanding in every interaction. Forgive those who wrong you, because they most likely didn't know any other way to act. Be kind to those people who deceive you and gossip and leave only anger and sadness behind them. We know that they are hurt the most by their actions. Remember that some people just have a crappy roll of the dice, and if we were born in a different place and in a different time or to different parents, then we may very well have been in their shoes. Think of all of these things when you're going through your day, and I hope that it will help you to be kinder and more understanding of your fellow people. I'll talk to you next time, but until then I hope that this episode has helped you on your rise to the good life. Ciao. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Practical Stoic Podcast. I hope it's been valuable for you, and if you'd like to support the show, then you can go to patreon.com/Simon Drew. If you'd like to try mindset coaching with me, then you can book your first free consultation by going to risetothegoodlife.com/coaching. To join the community, just go to Facebook and search for the Practical Stoic Mastermind. The links to all of these places are included in the show notes, but for now, this is Simon Drew signing out.